and this is our plant forum for January 2022. The plant forum is just, it's a way, when we meet in person, you can see from the picture there, we actually have a row of tables at the side of the meeting where people bring in plants or cut blossoms or foliage from their gardens, or even if they've found it somewhere else and want to know what it is and they want it identified, they bring it in. And so we're constantly trying to get people, we're trying to encourage you to send in pictures of your plants if it's a not in-person meeting, if you can do it. It's fairly easy to do through the website. And if you don't have all the information, don't worry about that. Just send it in and we'll try and fill it in for you and identify things and solve that mystery if you have a mysterious plant. So to get started, the first one is, this is from Sandy Masuo, who, for those of you who don't know, Sandy collects very intriguing plants, some of them rather strange. This one is really quite, I think this is a pretty cool thing. This is Bowiea volubilis, or the climbing onion. It's not an onion, it's just because the bulbous base of the plant sort of resembles an onion a little bit, but it's actually closer related to lilies. It's from South Africa, it's from Southern Africa, I should say, not South Africa. It's actually from a wide range all over the southern part of the continent. And she's growing this in a very loose, open mix. It's a succulent cactus mix that she says she's diluted with pumice. And this is necessary so that it doesn't get overwatered. And in the wild, this would probably go into a dormant period and lose all of its foliage. In the garden, it sounds as if, from what Sandy is saying here, that it's putting out new foliage just as the old foliage is dropping off of it. So that can happen with plants that would normally go through a longer dormant period. You can sometimes get this crossover when they're in sort of happier, less trying positions in a garden getting water. And these funny little greenish flowers that it bears, she says, are quite fragrant. So this sounds like a nice one. And it does climb, I think, to about 2 to 3 feet, if I remember, and probably would appreciate something to wind its way into. It's not a twiner. I think it's more of a leaner. So this is just, it's grown mainly for those wonderful, the bulbous base on there, I think is really quite attractive on this. She said it's, she won this at a silent auction for the Horticulturist of the Year when we do those, and that was several years ago, and she said she's very fond of it. And you can sometimes get these at cactus succulent shows and specialty nurseries. So they're not difficult to find, they're just not something you stumble across all the time. Unlike this, this is sent in from John Schustra, and this I think is, at least for, I remember this plant fondly. This is one of the first things I ever grew from seed and thought I was just doing such a fantastic job because they get enormous. If you grow it on good, well-drained soil, it can get 6 feet tall, and they're pretty spectacular. This is Amaranthus Caudatus, or the common name is Love Lies Bleeding. The wild form, at least this cultivated form of what's close to the species, is a kind of maroon purplish color, but you can find seed strains that have everything from almost an orange tan color all the way in through darker reds and lighter colors and even deeper purples. This is it's a grain. It's actually grown as a grain for the seeds. They're very small, but they're highly nutritious. There's a lot of protein in the seeds. You can even actually pop them. You can make amaranthus pop, not popcorn, but popped seeds. They puff. So that's really kind of interesting. You can buy amaranthus flour if you're interested in using it for cooking. And also there are forms of this where the foliage is edible when it's young. It's called summer spinach sometimes. It's one of many things called summer spinach. That's a very, it's a common name that's used for probably about 4 different plants. But they're very easy from seed. They will reseed if they're allowed to go to seed in the garden, and they will pop up. They'll volunteer all over the place, and easy to pull if you don't want them where they've come up. So worth growing. He points out they're great for arrangements, but not popular in wedding bouquets, which I think is a funny thing to point out. John does weddings at his property. So yes, not a color that would go with most bridal ensembles, but well worth growing from seed, and also to give to people as a cut flower, because if they've never had it before, you can have long trains of this. They get the flower spikes get quite long and droop down in a really fascinating way. So well worth growing. This is Lepechinia Hastata, and this is Laura Bauer sent this in, and she says Baja and Hawaii with a question mark. From what I was researching, I think it's only from Baja in northern Mexico. It sounds like it's probably has gone wild in Hawaii, like so many of the plants from the mainland and other parts of the world have. I don't think it's native to there from what I can see, but it's a subtropical, 3 to 4 feet tall and wide, although some of the information out there says it can even get larger than this. And there's a Lepechinia, forgetting the species, that's a California native, our native pitcher
Fragrance.
Fragrance?
Fragrance is one. There are actually 4, but that's the most popular.
Oh, that's the one most common. Thank you, Carol. That's Carol Bornstein. And this is called Baja pitcher sage. It's sometimes also called, I actually wrote it down so I wouldn't forget this. Oh, yes, Mexican pitcher sage. Very fragrant foliage usually. I'm not sure on this one, but Laura says that it's available from Annie's and from San Marcos. San Marcos lists it currently, so I think they are growing it. It's really quite spectacular in full bloom, and I'm sure is a good plant for hummingbirds. Drought tolerant as well. Related to salvias, it's in the Lamiaceae. So, and sounds like it's fairly easy to grow. The next one, another easy thing to grow. This is Pelargonium silver mint rose. And it's one of the scented pelargoniums from South Africa. The original plants come from South Africa. All of the multitudes of hybrids have been made from gardeners crossing them over the years. And this one's really looks pretty spectacular. An interesting thing about the scented geraniums is they can actually be used in cooking. You have to be careful. You don't want to eat them, but they can infuse the fragrance. So if either the rose or the citrus scented pelargoniums can actually be used to line a cake tin, and if you bake a sponge cake on top of them, they'll actually pull the scent into the cake, and then you peel them off when you finish baking. So if you want to have a different taste in a cake, you can also put them in a tin of sugar and leave them in there for a while, and they'll infuse the sugar with the same sort of, it's more fragrance than it is flavor. It's kind of a combination of the two, but it tends to be more of the fragrance. But these scented pelargoniums are really great for covering large areas in a garden very easily without much fuss. They're very strong growing and also easy to propagate from stem cuttings as long as you let them heal over just a little bit. So well worth growing. As Laura says here, it puts out a few flowers, but really you're not growing it for the flowers, you're growing it for this remarkable foliage. Looks really quite like a nice one. She got this from Greenwood, so it's a John Schustra's nursery, and he carries this. It's available at others as well, and you can get it mail order, but go to John. John will sell it to you. So this is sent in by April Curtis. This is Eucalyptus torquata, or the coral gum. This is on the smaller side for eucalyptus. Most eucalyptus can get really quite large. This is, she says 20 feet tall. The books and some of the information out there listed as a little bit taller, but it's a moderate growing eucalyptus, and it's really spectacular even in bud. The buds are beautiful. The flowers are they're just stunning with this coral pink color. And the torquata actually refers to the shape of the bud at the base. It's sort of twisted. This is from a fairly localized area in Southwest Australia. It's common within its range, but its range isn't huge. So it's from quite a small area on the continent, but well worth growing if you do want to try a eucalyptus that's not going to become a 150-foot monster plant. So really quite beautiful. There's a number of these. She said it also blooms off and on, so it doesn't most eucalyptus have a distinct season where they will bloom the heaviest, but some of them occasionally bloom over a much longer season, generally in the warmer months, the end of winter into the warmer months. So I would actually say if you've got room for a small tree and want to plant something fairly drought tolerant, this would actually work quite nicely. So we thank everyone who sent in their pictures and submitted all of the information there. And we do encourage you to do this in future for future meetings. I